Now let's take just a moment to talk about the challenge that's before us. Because if we're going to finish the Great Commission and reach all of the 16,000 ethnic groups in the world, it is definitely a challenge. In fact, I want you to understand that there are, to our knowledge, exactly 16,598 ethnic groups in the world. So write that number in your notes. Now, the reason we can be definite about that is because there are organizations that are devoting thousands of hours and lots of money to discover who these people groups are and where they are located. Now look at this. Of the 16,598 ethnic groups in the world, 6,918 of them are what we call unreached people. Now, I'll give you a definition about unreached people a little bit later, but basically that's people that live their whole lives without ever hearing a clear presentation of the gospel of Jesus Christ. They have no churches, no Bibles, no missionaries, no way to hear the gospel. Now, that's the challenge. Let me put the challenge also like this. Do you realize that almost every second that passes, someone dies somewhere in the world who never heard about Jesus? That's 43 people every minute, 2,500 every hour, and 62,000 every day. Write that number in your notes, 62,000. Now, understand this, that's not the total number of people who die in a day. That number would be much larger. This is the number of people who die every day without ever hearing the gospel. And I want to ask you a question. What are you going to do about this? You say, me? That's right. I'm talking to you because, as we saw earlier, you are God's method for reaching the world. Now, you might ask, where do all of these unreached people live? You know, nearly 2 billion who have never before heard the gospel. Well, on the screen you can see a map of what we call the 1040 window. The 1040 window is an imaginary rectangle, and it covers all of North Africa and the Middle East that are primarily Muslim countries, India and Nepal that are primarily Hindu, China that is primarily secular or communist, and then the countries of Southeast Asia and Japan that are primarily Buddhist. Now this 1040 window is very important because that's where 60% of the world's population live. 3.7 billion people live in that rectangular area. And the 55 least reached countries in the world are there. 78% of the world's least reached peoples live in the 1040 window. But notice this, only 3% of the world's missionary force is working there. Now that is amazing to me. We have 2 billion people, 6,900 unreached people groups, and only 3% of the world's missionary force is working there. Now, what does that mean? That means that you are very important because God is going to use you and others like you to help reach those who have never heard.